there are so many different, it's like saying, oh, I like to sew, or something like that, you know, I mean, well, what do? You make dresses, you could make quilts, you could, you know, I mean, you can do tatting, cross stitch, I mean, it's endless, you know, I mean, there's just, and Henry is the same way. You can get on the air and just talk till the cows come home to other people and just have a good time. And it's fun, and you meet people all over the world. And depending on how big your radio is. Now, yeah, that's oh, well, that's a lot better. I mean, how I started with was this big batteries weigh several pounds. Well, like 2 meters or 440. What is this?
That's the tri-band.
Quad?
Oh, you got it.
So what bands is it going?
He's up 2 meters, 6 meters, 70 centimeters.
Really?
It's 2, 6, 70, and what's the other one, Rob? 50? Was it?
Oh, 220. The 220. Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure. Mine's a tri-band, so I don't know. He got his
well,
33.
One of the things you can do on ham radio is called DXing. That's the big.
I know it's 2, 6, and 70 centimeters, so it's probably.
You try to talk to other countries all over the world. As a matter of fact, you try to talk to every single country there is in the entire world. And I've done it. I've talked to every single country there is, including North Korea, including you know, Tibet. I mean, you know, everywhere, every single country in the world. And I started from Donner Lake. I got the bug. It all happened. I love the water ski, and I put my ham radio away for a few years. You know, family and obligations, a new company and stuff like that. And I fell and broke a rib water skiing through stupidity. And the very next day we were supposed to leave for Florida for vacation. And I said, well, what are we going to do? You know, I can't laugh or cough or pick up a suitcase or anything, you know. And so I packed a ham radio set because I obviously wasn't going to do water skiing in Florida. Not a lot of sightseeing. So we set up the radio, and I had no idea what difference it meant to be at a lower latitude. And I'll explain in a minute why. But it worked very well, and I got on a contest. It just happened to be CQ Worldwide CW. It was a Norse Code contest that weekend in October. And I talked to 100 countries in that one weekend. And I mean, you know, all the countries in Europe, you know, it's just, I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
One weekend I got 100. So then I was at 78. And I came home and I was living at the west end of Donner Lake, you know, and pine trees. So I put an antenna that stretched, you know, the pine trees. And it took me a year to work the next hunt. Wasn't still location. Why is it? Okay, location, and I'll tell you in a minute. Then we moved to Incline Village, and that was a very sad situation. I'll explain why. I was on the North Shore, and on the North Shore of Lake Todd, you know, the mountain rises steeply to the north. Incline Village. I was at 7,400 feet. I was way up. The last house is up there. And but when you turned your antenna towards Europe, you were aimed into, is it Mount Rose? Yeah. And when I launched my signal, I warned the squirrels and the pine trees across the street. And being an engineer and a professor, of course, I wasn't satisfied to know it just didn't work very well. I wanted to know exactly how it worked. So I knew another ham in Sacramento, an engineer, and he had an antenna, and we knew exactly how much multiplication, how effective his antenna was, exactly. dB gain. And so we listened on the radio and said, "Do you hear that station from France?" Said, you know, I hear the station. Yes, I hear the station. Okay. How loud is on yours? And I looked at the needle on my set, and it was somewhere over here, and the needle on his set was somewhere over there. You know, and I could, you know, but I could hear him, but it wasn't loud. It was killing his receiver. So we compared the signals, and I worked out the math, and I did studied a book, because I have lots of books on the shelf, one by Shelnikoff on radio propagation. And so here's a mountain, and here's where I live down here in Incline Village, and Europe was that way. And so the signals come in like this, and a little tiny bit of it bends and comes down to my house. Actually, it comes in more like that. And so it turned out I was getting 1/2 of 1% of the signal. And I can remember trying to talk to people and talking and calling and hoping, you know, and as the countries got rarer, you know, there was a lot of competition from the East Coast. Let me tell you, the East Coast guys, 100 watts dipole, they were 10 times louder than that. It was 100 times louder. And so my wife watched me sit on the radio, and I'd call and they'd get louder, and I'd call, and then they'd get weaker, and then they'd be gone. And I never did get to talk. So I got a Henry amplifier. No, I mean, that's like a 50 caliber. Henry amplifier moves. And so I got the Henry amplifier, and I got on the air, and there's some rare station in Africa. Okay. And I was calling. Finally, we have a class of operation. Now, did you bring that small radio? Yeah.
The handheld?
This. Okay. Oh, I saw it. So this runs 5 watts, and this does all the HF band?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it goes on 14 megahertz, which is where I was. And 14 megahertz, or the 20-meter band, 20 meters, is the workhorse of ham radio. I mean, when you talk about going around the world. Now I'll explain. I heard him calling, and every time I call, this is K6GNX. Answer something in Pennsylvania or the Midwest. Well, a few stations on the West Coast that had huge, big stations with big antennas. And finally, in desperation, the tubes inside the Henry amplifier were glowing orange when I was talking. I jacked it up as high as I could. And I said, "This is K6GNX QRP." Now, I don't know if anyone knows, but QRP means that you are not running more than 5 watts. So I was running well over 1,000. and I don't know, through some luck in life, the guy goes, and it was an Italian operator visiting this. The QRP station, go ahead, So I get the contact with a new country, thrilled to death that I stopped transmitting this voice from somewhere in Kansas goes, QRP mine. Now let me explain why.